Welcome to the Your Limitless Leadership Podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. Here, we believe leadership isn't just about titles. It's about how you show up in every aspect of life. Whether you're leading a business, building a legacy as an entrepreneur, guiding your family, or striving to lead yourself first, this podcast is for you. Join us as we dive into real conversations about growth, decision-making, and the courage it takes to lead with purpose. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and equipped to become the limitless leader you are meant to be. This is Your Limitless Leadership Podcast. Let's lead without limits. Welcome to Your Limitless Leadership. And I got to tell you, man, I have a dude that's really special in my heart, and he probably knows this. Maybe he doesn't know this, but just the way that, and I know he doesn't think this way, but the way he's helped me over the years, just his, and it's not just business. It's the way you just make time for others and you really care about people around you, and just how you've impacted my life in so many ways and things that you've said and done. And I know sometimes we don't see that. His name's Joel Seleskie, and he is the top, if I'm correct on this, the top advisor in all of Minnesota for Northwestern Mutual and Seleskie Financial. But it's not just that, it's his kids. So when people say I don't have time to do things or what have you, he's been married to his wife Katie since 2008, which tells you right there the type of person he is, and probably she is, to put up with him at times, I'm guessing, as well. And then the four boys, Levi, Jack, Sawyer, and Cade, and I'll let him speak to that a little bit. But I know how much he makes time for them, and I know how much he spends time with them, all the while running that type of business too. So first, thank you, bud, for being on here, because you're a good one, my man. I appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate the very kind words, and yeah, I appreciate that. We've got a good practice. I suppose it depends on who you talk to, whether the topic is or not, but probably depends on the day. But no, I appreciate the kind comments, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, tell us about you. I know you, but everybody listening to this doesn't know you well, and the story that you have, and just kind of even your start from Southwestern and selling books, but where are you originally from? What led you to that? And then obviously what led you into the financial world, Northwestern Mutual, and building what you've built, just kind of the evolution of Joel, I guess, over time.
Sure. I mean, this will be rather lengthy, but I'll try to make it short. But I grew up in Hastings, Minnesota, suburb of Twin Cities. I grew up, rather middle class, pretty blue collar. My dad delivered printing for most of my, childhood, for a printing shop in Hastings, and he would work on people's cars at our home on nights and weekends. And my mom got lucky and got a job around 19 or 20 at 3M. Previous to that, she worked at Smead's Manufacturing that made all the folders that we all used to use back in the day. But good family. They were committed to their kids. I have a sister. She is a handful of years or so younger than me. She lives up north and is a physician's assistant. But they did a good job raising us, and I definitely learned the power of work ethic at a young age. I was telling this story earlier today, so I'll just tell you quick. But I had a buddy who had a paper route, and he always had the cool things. He had a cool freestyle bike. He had a cool set of winter skis, and I learned really quick that making money allowed you to buy things. And so I got the first job I could legally at 12, which was corn to tasseling, and learned pretty quick that's not what I wanted to do for my life or in the summers. And at 13, one of my dad's real good friends allowed me basically to work illegally at a bar / restaurant, bussing tables, doing dishes, stuff like that. And it was rewarding to me to work hard and to be able to make a buck. After several years, the gentleman who ran this bar, his name was Mike. He noticed that I was willing to work hard for money, and he also noticed I was pretty intelligent with my money. I would save all my money. Yeah. So he pulled me aside, probably 16 or 17, and he talked to me about an IRA, an individual retirement account. back then you could put $2,000 into an individual retirement account. And he told me, he said, Joel, if you put $2,000 away into an individual retirement account from age 20 till age 30, you'll have $1 million when you turn 65, even if you do it for 10 years. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And with my upbringing, um,
Huh.
I was like, geez, I'm gonna leverage this. I'm gonna execute this. So the very next day, I went to the Edward Jones guy in town and told him about this, and he said, "Sure, I can help you set this up, but you're not 18. You got to come back tomorrow with your mom." So I came back with my mom. We set up the account, and I was off to the races. He did tell me that if I waited till I was 30 years old and I just simply put that same $2,000 away every single year, at 65, I won't have $1 million, and that just didn't make sense to me. If you did it for a longer period of time, why wouldn't you have
Hmm.
money? But it all came down to compounding and how that works. And so I started reading books. I got really interested in it. I obviously took his advice and went and set up and opened this IRA. The local Edward Jones guy showed me if I could put 2 grand away from, I think I was, like I said, 16 or 17, all the way to
Yep.
65, I would actually have like $4 million. And I'm like, wow, this just keeps getting better. Um, and so I took the advice, and then I started to coach my buddies who, had summer jobs working at the street department and such about putting money into IRAs. And I just found it kind of rewarding. And so that kind of spurred my interest in personal finance and saving and investing money and yada, yada, yada. Um, was always a good student. Neither of my parents went to college. It was important for me to go to college. And for some reason, it's seventh grade, a light switch. And I'm like, hey, listen, if I want to go to a good college, which my parents wanted me to, that'll help me get a good job. I better get good grades so I can get into a good college. And in seventh grade, I had a high school counselor that sat me aside. You could never do this today, but sat me down. You mandatorily had to meet with the counselor once a year, and he pulled up
Okay.
the whole class rankings, and he said, "Joel, you're like number 60 in your class." And he showed me all the people in front of me. He's like, "None of these people are smarter or better than you." He's like, "I want you to graduate eighth grade in the top 20," and I graduated number 16. And so I worked hard, learned you could get good grades if you worked hard. Obviously, that extended into my high school years. I graduated and was salutatorian of my class. That was kind of something that made my family, even my extended family, extremely proud. And searched around for colleges and went to the University of Minnesota initially, honestly, for an engineering degree in the Institute of Technology, but quickly transitioned to the Carlson School of Management after my first summer selling books, um, because of this interest I had in finance and personal finance and in managing money. Um, One quick add-on: I wasn't like, I always played sports, but I wouldn't say I was like the best athlete. But I had a vision pretty young that I wanted to play quarterback for Hastings. And in, I think, ninth grade, I had a young lady, I should say, in my class who was raised by her dad and her brother and could beat up all the boys, tell me that I'd never be able to play quarterback because I was too small and not strong enough. And so I relentlessly started working out. I was lucky to have a couple of upperclassmen who took me under their wings and would work out with me every day. And I had a lot of success. I got stronger and faster. And it was that kind of coupled with the hard work I put into school that I kind of developed this mindset that, hey, listen, you can really do anything you want in life if you're willing to put in the work or the effort. And so those were kind of like the foundational things that I took with me when I went off to college. And I'll pause and I'll tell you about my college and how I got to Northwestern. But I just don't know if there are any gaps I left for you, Brent, that you were.
Oh, I love that, man. Like that, just the pattern. I hope people see the pattern that you're talking about here, that somebody took you under their wing and said, if you just do this, you're gonna have $1 million. And you went, well, I can do that. That's not that hard. Or you're 60. I need you to finish in the top 20. Well, I can do that. That's not that hard. I'll figure that out. And then even into to business, when you start talking about that, your mindset, just the way you look at things as I if I just work a little bit harder, I can do these things. And I don't want to underestimate this. Other people can do that too. Like that's not that abnormal, right? Is where I'm going with that. That you made a decision and you started to do it.
funny decision on that. I mean, there's two things that come to my mind when I hear you restate that. But first of all, one of the other individuals that worked at this bar with me that was quite a bit
Yep.
older um, became a client of mine in my early financial services career. And I shared this story with him, and he's like, I wonder why Mike didn't teach me that lesson. And I relayed that story back to Mike, who later on became a client of mine too. And Mike chuckled and he's like, I taught him the same lesson I taught you. You just took action. And that's
Yep.
one of my ahas in life. And the second, just to hear you kind of restate some of that, is how fortunate we are to have external influences or people who care enough to teach us these lessons. And I've shared this with both my boss Mike and even the middle school counselor, Mr. Moore, and they kind of brush it off. But I think it's underestimated how positive and how big of an influence we can have um, in the lives of others by just simple little nuggets.
Well, I go back to, and you may not remember this, but we were having lunch one day and you were telling me the story about how you have your son, I think it was one of your sons, pump gas. That's all it was. You
Yeah.
remember that story?
Well, it was, when you get into business and time becomes very valuable, um, you're always looking for time hacks. And a colleague slash buddy of mine, had his personal assistant
Yeah.
pump his gas because it saved time. And there's that's 100% legitimate. But I'm also trying to raise four capable, young men. And I was like, if they were never to witness me pump gas or, you know, do other things that maybe I
Wow.
could have other people do to save me time, I just wonder what sort of influence I'm going to be able to make on them or help them mature and develop and grow.
I love that. So that's where that, okay. Tell me about, and what you just talked about with your dad, your mom, your family, the work ethic, because you touched on that. And obviously you gain that. Because if there's, I know most people on here don't know Joel, but if you understand the work ethic that he has, that's just normal to you. That's just who you are and what you do. How did your parents, like, what did you grasp onto there? Was it just or was it the paper out that you saw somebody making money and you're like, well, I can do that? Where did that work ethic come from? What did you see your parents do that you kind of latched onto?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had no choice, to be honest. I mean, we had a great upbringing,
Okay.
but at 11 years old, we moved out of an apartment building into our first home. And I
Right.
remember the difference between the rent in the apartment and the mortgage on the apartment or in the new home was like $100. And my parents were not even certain how they were going to come up with that $100 delta, which sounds crazy today because a tank of gas is $100 for a truck, um, but that was my reality. And we didn't go without much. We had a great life, but my dad worked all the time.
Hmm.
And, it's kind of interesting. Like all the stuff I've learned in business, there could have been things my dad could have done more efficiently, more intelligently. He could leverage technology, he could hire employees, he could do all these things. But, you know, just the sheer amount of hours he put into work to helping our family. I don't know. I just observed it. And then I think I enjoyed some of the hard work came from the enjoyment from earning a buck. I mean, I'm not shy to say that. Um and I don't know, there's a satisfaction to being a contributor to society. And I was a weirdo. I had visions and thoughts about how I want to take care of my future family, even though I was, a teenager. And I knew
Wow.
saving money, preparing, making intelligent decisions as a young man was just going to make it easier than my parents had it when they were trying to raise a young family. And so um, it was kind of an obligation. My parents had to work hard to have us to do all the things they wanted to do for us as kids and to live in the house we lived in and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think that's kind of and I got it, the dichotomy of we learn from our parents. We learn the good, just like we would from leaders or whatever. We learn the good things, we learn the not as good things. And it's almost like you're saying, I learned the work ethic, but I also learned on the flip side that I can make more money if I do the right things or things better as well. Because I don't want my family to have to live in that world of, can I pay that $100, if you
Yeah,
will.
and part of it too is like I wanted, my dad was great, but I also wanted to be present for my kids' activities and watch their games, coach their teams, and my dad just worked too much to do some of that.
Hmm.
So I wanted to be different. And some of that for me back then, it was really honestly as simple as like just going to college. Like my parents didn't go to college, and I knew by going to college I could get a good white collar job. I mean, part of the reason I went for engineering was my mom worked at 3M, and in the early day we lived in Hastings, and I would go type up my papers and print out my book reports at 3M because we didn't have a personal computer back then. And driving through what would be old Woodbury, there were like these new, nicer houses propping up. And my mom was like, these are all engineers at 3M. And I was like, well, geez, if I could go to college, get a good engineering degree, I could live in a house like that or something, you know what I mean? And so that's what kind of inspired me early on to work hard and make a decision to go to college and get good grades and all that.
I just love the way you connect the dots. If I do this, I can do this, that'll get me this, is kind of what you're, even back to the bar, right? If I do this, this, and this, the nicer house is this, and I can get to that. Okay, so the transition from obviously almost being a kid, right? College, what have you, into selling books at Southwest, and touch on what that actually means, because there's selling books and then there's what you did in college. Let's call it what it is. So, kind of touch on, how did you end up there? How did that happen? If you're listening to this and you're thinking, that's me, you're not alone. Let's call it what it is. You've got the drive, you've got the experience, like you have it. You have it. You know what you're doing. But something still feels off at times, or things could be better. We know that they can be. There's more. What we do is we help committed leaders go from guessing and grinding to really leading with clarity and structure and confidence. We're offering complimentary DNA strategy calls. We're going to evaluate how you're leading, where performance might be breaking down. It happens. And what really needs to tighten up within your business, within your leadership, within those people around you. Then we're going to take this next step. And what we're going to do is build accountability, the skills, and the systems to create that consistent, or those consistent results around it. If you're open to digging in a little bit, the link is below in the show notes. Just book your DNAcall.com and we will find time for you and we will dig in with you. All right, let's get back to it.
Yeah. So, like I said, I went to school to be an engineer. I was in the
No?
Institute of Technology. I was always a good student, but I took my freshman year in college. I took Calc 3 and Physics 3, and I just remember kind of thinking to
Goodness.
myself, like, I don't enjoy this these topics. You know what I mean? Like, I love math, I love science, but it got to the point where you're talking about theory and space, and I just kind of like, this isn't my cup of tea. But I was just lucky at the University of Minnesota to get recruited to go to an interview for Southwestern.
Yeah.
I went. They told me I could make $10,000 in the summer. That sounded great to me. I signed up, told my mom and dad about it, and initially their reaction was, "You're not doing that." They're like, Southwestern is just looking to get independent contractors to move their product to make a profit. They don't have to provide benefits. They don't have to have a professional sales force, which isn't inaccurate. But I so then I went back. My sales manager said I can't do it. My parents aren't going to let me. And to
Really?
his credit, I mean, I still kind of wanted to do it, but his credit, he kind of sold me back on it. And it was kind of one of the first things I told my parents, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And you may not love it, but I'm going to do it. But I'm 18, 19, and probably at that time years old. I can almost 19. I can do this. Went to a couple student manager meetings on campus. I'm like, these kids are just different. They have goals, they have visions, they have ambitions. So I'm like, then I was kind of all in. Um, and so, yeah, I signed up to sell books. And that first summer, I've told this story before, but it sounds sexist, and it sort of is. It's the problem of our industry today, but we need more wonderful female advisors. In fact, in your network, if this podcast were to get to a kick-ass,
Heck
excuse my language, female advisor. We're always looking for them because I think women are better advisors than men. But that being said, I met like I'm going to say like 5 dads that
yeah.
first summer selling books who all looked at me and said, "Hey, kid, what are you going to do when you grow up? Because if you can sell books door to door, you can do anything." And I kind of shared with them, "Hey, I kind of like the idea of doing personal finance." And the 5 I'm speaking of were all financial advising to some different companies, different levels. Some are insurance, some are investments, whatever. But they all, said to me, "Well, I've got a friend, Susie or Johnny back in Minneapolis, and you need to talk to them when you wrap up your summer." And so
Hmm.
they took an interest in what I was doing with my summers. They sat down and listened to my sales pitch. They bought books from me, and there were some kind of common themes. Their wives still seemed to like them. Their kids still kind of seemed to think they were cool. They lived kind of on the nicer side of town, not always the biggest houses, but I remember thinking to myself, man, these people appreciate what I'm doing. They're willing to make introductions to me. They seem to have a lot of good things going on that were important to me at that stage of my life from observation. And so that summer, and I don't remember logistically how this all worked, but I applied to the Carlson School of Management, and I had to actually leave the book field for an orientation. Came back, sold books door to door in Woodbury for the day I had off or whatever to kind of stay on schedule, is what they call that in the book field. Came back to the book field and I got accepted essentially. And upon wrapping up my
Wow.
first summer, I went back as a sophomore to the Carlson School of Management. Knew I wanted to get a finance degree. Was totally committed to doing personal financial planning after that experience. And then maybe I'll pause, but I'll tell you what happened next and see if you had any questions about that part of my story.
I got to touch on that a little bit. So, to put this in perspective, when he's talking about selling books, he didn't get to go back to Woodbury when he was selling. Where was your first summer?
My first summer was in Lee Summit, Missouri, which happens to be where the county fair is in the state of Missouri. So
So he got shipped to Missouri, and that's where his territory was. And he's selling books from 7:50, correct me if I'm wrong, 7:59 in the morning till 9:30 at night, Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays you also had your meetings as well, correct?
that's correct.
80 plus hours a week that he's knocking on doors, literally knocking on doors individually, going door to door in Lee Summit. And that was just the first summer. How many summers you do it?
I did 4. Yeah, I did 4.
So
Still have some
I don't
PTSD, and I wake up some mornings. It takes me a minute to wake up and say, "Oh, thank God I'm not selling books today. I don't have a place to live." Because we also had to knock on doors to find a place to live for the summer, a host family. And I still,
yeah.
this is 30 years later. I still some days, wake up in a cold sweat on a Saturday going, "Oh gosh, I don't have to find a place to live today." So good experiences though.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, even the work ethic, the what you talked about again, when you go back to the pattern here, just those meetings that you went to and seeing the way these kids, now we call them kids, thought differently. The vision, the goals, the mentality of what you really want to accomplish. And then even sitting down with the dads you're talking about, like, if I do this, I can get to this. And I love that you're talking about that because I wish we could just transfer that. Like I wish somebody would have taken me under my wing when I was and said, if you just save $2,000 a year, you're going to be a millionaire by the time you're like, those are the things I hope people hear, that you can do this, right? Is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and
So,
I had a thought about this earlier, and I just refrained from saying it, but I think it's important for your listeners.
mhm.
But as I'm trying to raise 4 boys of my own, and also kind of reflecting on my childhood, what's kind of interesting is, for whatever reason, we often don't listen to our parents. And so I oftentimes wonder if my parents were to teach me the same lessons. Now I've learned lessons
Yeah.
from my parents. I learned hard work pays off. There were lessons I learned. I want to go to college to maybe have a different type of occupation than my parents had or whatever, right? But I I believe it takes a village to raise a young child,
Good way to put it.
to teach those nuggets. Because for me, it was a boss, it was a um, counselor in middle school or whatever, right? There's other things like I worked at a bar. I told you that. I mean, To this day, I think about it. But some of my dad's best friends, my dad stopped drinking when I was about 6 or 7 years old. But some of my dad's best friends, in the summers on a Saturday when I'd be working in this bar, I would be just jonesing to get my job done and to get off of work to go to the beach to hang out with my friends or whatever.
Hmm.
And these guys that were friends with my dad would elect to sit in a dark, dingy bar and suck down Budweisers. And they would tell me at that age, don't let this be you. Like, you don't want
Oh,
this.
wow.
Like, this is just our social circle. It's ingrained in us. This is our habit. My dad switched that habit to then working out people's cars. He needed to replace his, he was always he didn't cause any trouble when he drank, but he just would be at the bar. And so it's not a good place to be when you have a young family. So and that was another lesson. My dad's commitment to his family, like, hey, he didn't go to any AA, he didn't know, he just committed to my mom, I will stop drinking.
Yeah,
He did it in a day and never drank again. So there are other lessons like that are weaved in. But for your listeners, it's like,
I
how
love
can
that.
we influence other people and even other people's kids in ways that we might not even understand or reap major rewards down the road, because they might be being raised by wonderful parents, but they might not listen to them. I welcome anybody to teach lessons to my four sons, because I'm rooting for them to have wonderful adulthoods, but they're gonna need to learn some of these lessons from people outside myself,
Yeah. And to be open to do that.
and to be
As
open and to follow through and to execute.
Yep. That's, you've touched on that, where it's you got to take action on it too. It isn't just something you hear. It's something that, and maybe you have to hear it over and over and over again, but eventually it falls on the right time and the right ear in that moment. Yeah.
Yep.
How'd you go from books,
Yep.
and there's so many financial institutions out there, right? There's a lot of them.
Yep.
How did you end up, and you've been at Northwestern for 25 years now,
Yep.
give or take. Why there? And then we can get into what keeps you there, but why there? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I just simply went to a career fair at the Carlson School my sophomore year,
Really?
back from from selling books. I saw, now I was committed. I was in the finance program, and I knew I wanted to sell books. And so I went to their career fair in Northwestern back then, and I think they still kind of do. They had a very highly regarded internship program. It was one of the
Yep.
top 10 in the country by what's referred to as the Princeton Review, is what it used to be. Like MTV, working for MTV, working for Northwestern. These are all kind of highly regarded internships. And I had a buddy who I worked up that same bar with in high school, who was transitioning from, he was older than me, but he was transitioning from being an intern to doing the career full time. And he's like, Joel, it's a great internship. You want to do this? Check it out. If nothing else, it'll look good on your resume. So I came into Northwestern. This was the late 90s, and well, actually mid to late 90s.
Okay.
And I got all my designation, or like I got licensed and got some credentials and designations. And I really liked the culture. I was not a very productive intern, because
Okay.
most interns produce in the summer, and every summer I left to go sell books. So it was during the school year that I would get trained up. And I love the people. I just liked it. And so I stuck with it. And so that was the kind of the origin story of Northwestern. And then I sold books for 4 summers. My last summer selling books, I thankfully graduated college a semester early. Part of that was because they gave me credit for my internship experience with Southwestern selling books. Um, the University of Minnesota transitioned from quarters to semesters, and that hurt a lot of people, but it didn't me. So I just got done early. And
Okay.
I full-time recruited from January, when I graduated in December, through that spring semester, May, and then left to sell books for last summer. And I brought out a bigger team. I think it was one of the most, it wasn't a huge team. It was 13 individuals, but I think to this day, they were the most productive team. Our organization was called Junkyard Dogs. I still stay in contact with some of the Junkyard Dogs people. And
Around.
to this day, I think that was the most productive team. And so I full-time recruited, and I put my internship at Northwestern on ice and couldn't participate because I couldn't keep up with their requirements.
Okay.
Went on, sold books, came back, went to Europe for a month, backpacked, had a great time. But then after 30 days, even in Europe, I'm like, I'm ready to start my life.
Hmm.
And after selling books for 4 years, got the opportunity to interview all over. because after selling books for 4 years, some of these folks are like, okay, financial services is hard, but you can sell books to door for 4 summers, build an organization, 100% commission, live in a different state. You could probably do this. And so I interviewed all over. Um, and at the end of the day, had a lot of opportunities. At the end of the day, I still liked my association with Northwestern. I really liked the people, and
Love it.
the industry was changing. So in the late 90s, under President Clinton, there was a law called Glass-Steagall that was eliminated. And it took down the walls between banks, insurance companies, and brokerage houses. And you saw American Express and IDS become Ameriprise. Wells
Ah,
Fargo and Norwest Bank become Wells Fargo to offer banking and investments. And you saw Citibank become Citigroup. And there was just a lot of consolidation, and Northwestern committed to get into the investment space. Prior to that, we had owned the Robert W. Baird Company. And so I was securities licensed. I would do investments through Robert W. Baird,
yeah.
other planning through Northwestern Mutual, but they had a commitment to growing in the investment space. And so I said, I like it here. I'm going to try this out. Just real quick. I had an advisor for some of the book money I made as a kid, and he kept leaving and going to different companies. Like it was Norwest, and then it was A.G. Edwards, and then it was whatever. And so I took this decision very seriously because I didn't want to take on a bunch of clients and then tell them, hey, I'm leaving to go here. And I didn't understand self-employment at the time. Like, if I'm being honest, 25 years ago when I had to pay to take my buddies out for lunch or coffee or pay for my parking, I didn't necessarily love that. But I had some relatively early success. I was at the right place at the right time. I started pursuing helping people save and invest at an early age, and I kind of built what's considered this integrated practice. Fast forward to today, business looks a lot different. I mean, we definitely have a lot of the resources that Northwestern Mutual provides, all my compliance, all my technology, got the access to their products, can offer products from other companies in the marketplace. And I work for, I work for a company that doesn't manufacture any investment products. So we're on an open architecture platform. I love self-employment today. We manage in excess of $1 billion. When you get over $1 billion, even up to that, your phone rings off the hook. Come work here, come work there. A lot of there are other independent competitors out there, but there are also a lot of banks that are in the business. Where if I were to go work for them, I would be an employee for the bank, and that looks a lot different than running my own show today, where I can hire whoever I want. I've got 23 people on our team today. Yeah. I own the building that we come to office in every day. It's just the luxuries of being self-employed have outweighed everything else. And I've been really able to build the practice that we've wanted without much disruption. So we're here. We love it here. Who knows what the future holds, but all things point towards us operating as Seleskie Financial, which is like an independent entity underneath the umbrella of Northwestern Mutual. They provide a lot of, Fortune 100 type support, but kind of let me do my own thing as long as my compliance record's clean and I take really good care of clients.
I got to touch on a couple things there. And then, yeah, first and foremost, I got to go back to the Southwestern and having that team of 13 that's still one of the top performing teams. Southwestern's been around for over 160 years. He didn't say that. So he has one of the top producing teams still of a company that's been around for 160 years. That's commitment, that's work ethic, that's leadership. That doesn't just happen. Put it that way. And then even to Northwestern, and why I kind of asked you that question is we were sitting at lunch again about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, and I asked him, why do you stay? And to hear the way you just described it, because again, you make the connections here, man, of somebody did something or said something to you at one point that made you go, I don't want to do that, or I do want to do that. And that person jumped, and you don't want to be that person to other people. You want to be solid and committed to them, is really what you just said. And I love that. And then even building the team of 23, You didn't start as an intern going, I'm going to build a team of 23 people and have $1 billion in AUM, right? Assets under management. I know we don't have a lot of time here, but Cliff's Notes, how did you build that? Like, what was the mindset around that? Or was it just did you have a vision of that? Or was it just the bigger I get, I got to keep adding people because I want to take care of people too?
So I've just been fortunate. I've been surrounded by some really awesome clients, and I think it's a couple things. I've been blessed with really good clients. I have a commitment to serve them and take really good care of them, and to
Love
do
it.
that for decades to come. If I always use the example, if I'm working with somebody my age, I can't just take care of them until they retire and then shift them off to an island and say, good luck with somebody else. I got to get them to retirement and all the way through retirement. And that may not involve me if we're similar age. So I got to build the team and the infrastructure to serve them for years to come. And how we got 23 people, if I'm being honest, is just simply our clients took us to a place where they needed this amount of service. They wanted these capabilities. They entrusted us to deliver upon that. And I just had to build a team around the clients to serve them in the way they wanted to be served. And so we consider ourselves a boutique firm. A boutique firm doesn't mean that we're small. It doesn't mean we serve, you know, one geographic area. It means we're really built to service the clients we're surrounded by. And I think we'll have 50 employees someday. I think we'll have, you know, $10 billion under management someday. I know that. It's not necessarily something that I strive for. It's just our clients are going to take us there. Their successes and their relationship with us is going to, they're going to pull me along with them as we continue to serve them and provide good advice and good counsel. And as they lean on us to be their partner.
It's like you're this boutique firm that can do it all at the same time and can serve it. But what you just said about it wasn't about you growing, it was about you taking care of the people around you.
Yes.
Then inevitably you looked for the growth because you wanted to be you wanted to take care of them, really is what it comes down to. I love that. If people are looking for you, how do they find Joel?
Well, SeleskieFinancial.com is one way to
Okay.
find us to engage with our team. I'm easy to find. I mean, in the spirit of helping people and in the spirit of giving back, I mean, I'm open to people that, could want to pick my brain on anything. You might be somebody whose kid just came home from college and said, I met this person on campus that wants me to sell books door to door. And I would love to share with you my experiences on that to help your son or daughter make a good decision on that.
Yeah.
You may be somebody that's in the financial services practice that does aspire to be $1 billion firm, but just doesn't know how they're going to get there. I love to provide insight and wisdom around that. You might be somebody in need of financial services and just haven't found the right partner. We're here for that. We continue to build out our team here. I have already mentioned, if there's female advisors out there that are kicking butt and looking to attach a team that can provide support and have some of the same desires for their clients to serve them for generations to come and to service them with a very capable team and have a lot of bench strength around them. You can find me, but Seleskie Financial is the easiest probably way without publishing my cell phone number, but that's why I've been distributed out there too. And if you get your hands on my cell phone number, feel free to reach out.
Just ask me. I'll give it to you.
That's right.
Anytime.
That's right.
Thank you, man, for being on here. This is so good because it's like you have this drive mentality, but also this just caring and nature of you just want to help people. And those two married is pretty cool. Like that's not normal. So I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for joining us on the Your Limitless Leadership podcast with Jenny and Brent Widman. We hope today's conversation inspired you to think differently about leadership, not just in your career, but in every part of your life. Remember, leadership starts with leading yourself first. It's about taking action, making bold decisions, and showing up with purpose. Now, it's time to take what you've heard today and put it into practice. Whether it's in your business, your community, your family, or your own personal growth, start leading without limits. You have the power to become the leader you're meant to be. Until next time, keep pushing your boundaries and leading with purpose.